Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson. We're glad you're with us this morning.
Because we have a very special guest. We're all at Twitter here and very excited because Holly Robinson Peete is. We're Twitter-pated.
Here she is.
Because you're wonderful. And of course, everybody knows you. Anybody who is a card-carrying autism mom or dad knows who you are. But you are a very accomplished actress. You are a co-author of an award-winning book that has to do with autism. You are an extreme autism advocate, and we're so thrilled that you took the time to be with us.
And let's not forget the wife of a great American athlete,
yes,
and also an author and advocate for autism.
Yes.
And just an all-around crazy lady.
That's right. We'll add that in there, too. Well, you have to be to get all that done, darling.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm a big fan of what you both do. I follow you guys and all the work that you do on behalf of families affected by autism. Just, this is my first time being in your building, in your space, and you doing so much over here. And I was just saying I'm local, so, I just didn't know you guys were so close, so you may not get rid of me.
Well, I would love it. We'd like to come on a weekly basis.
Come on in. Let's do it.
So we'd be thrilled to have you as whenever you want.
Well, thank you.
Well, as Shannon said, you have accomplished so much in entertainment. So many of us, I certainly remember 21 Jump Street.
Yes.
And
now a lot of people do because of the
movie,
film.
right? Yes. And when you look at your career in TV and then the fact that you had a child with autism, you were a prominent national figure, you decided you would speak out about this, you would own it, you would be proud of it, you would be out there educating parents. A lot of people in your position, Holly, have not done so. A lot of people, yeah.
And what I will say to that is that it's not for everybody.
Right.
Not everybody has the big mouth I have. Not everybody has the desire for the platform to talk about it. And I've met a lot of those sort of celebrity or high-profile families, and they've said that to me. Thank you for doing this because we can't.
Well, that's
and
not
I understand that because it took us 5-6 years to talk about it.
Of course.
I mean,
but what made you decide to be an advocate and an activist and to go out there and help other parents?
If I'm being honest, we were kind of outed. I was doing the cover story of Essence magazine, and I hadn't talked about my son having autism yet publicly. And then the writer came over, and RJ started peppering her with these questions, just sort of, and doing a lot of echolalia and stuff.
Yeah.
And she sort of looked at him like what's going on with this kid?
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, he has autism, so he sometimes will do this, that, and the other. And she was like, I didn't know he had autism. And I guess since we had spoken about it so much in our own space, I forgot that I hadn't really made some grand announcement publicly.
Okay.
So then she wrote about him having autism, and that became the whole scope of the story. And from that moment, he was maybe 8 or 9. From that moment on, it was like I was sort of drawn in. And then the response was so overwhelming that I said, okay. And we had a kitchen table conversation, Dad and the kids, and we wrote out the pros and cons. Husband was worried that he might be, labeled the athlete's son with autism. He was worried about the labeling.
Right.
But I, made a case and I won that fight, which I do, at home all the time.
Right. You say it's my way or the highway.
Right.
Babe, right.
No, but he really understood. My husband did understand the importance of sharing the story and how many people are helped by it. And then in hindsight, it was the best thing that we could have ever done.
Really, no regrets?
I really don't. Every now and then, my son will say to me, my daughter did, this is a perfect example, my daughter did, his twin sister did a commencement speech, and it was about her autism advocacy, and it was beautiful. But her brother redlined the whole thing. You can't say twin, you can't say that. So there's moments where I feel like, he's a little bit on blast and he knows it. But then if you contrast that to when we're at an autism walk or where we're somewhere where he got an award at Carnegie Hall and he said these beautiful words, when you contrast when, he has sort of that reluctant guy where he's like, I don't want to, and then when he gets in that moment, he's like the Martin Luther King of autism all the time. He's like, he embraces it, and he gets that his advocacy is having an impact.
Well, it empowered him.
It really has.
And he knows it's not a stigma, but that he can be an example for other kids. And I remember at the Autism Speaks walk, we interviewed you both, and he's such a handsome young man.
Yeah.
And he wants to be called Rodney now, not RJ Jr.
He wants to be called Rodney, and he made that very clear when he was around 11 years old, that he just didn't want to be RJ anymore, but we call him everything. He answers to a lot of things.
How many children do you have?
4 total.
4. And
5 including my husband.
Okay, and what ages are they? Because we don't want to forget about the other kids.
Yes, of course. My twins are Rodney and Ryan. My daughter, Ryan Elizabeth, they're 14.
Okay.
Then we have Robinson. He's 9. Gave him my maiden name. It's all very confusing at the airport.
Okay.
And Roman, the last guy, because if I didn't give him an R name, there would have been a book about me somewhere. Roman, who is 7. So 3 boys and a girl. Oh, there they are. Don't they look just so
what a gorgeous
Don't they look so angelic?
And the dogs. How did
What
you
kind
get
of dog
everybody?
was that?
Harriet on the right. Harriet is Newfoundland. She was our service dog.
Gorgeous.
Oh.
She's an unbelievable
wonderful.
autism service dog, and then she's just the greatest family. She's the Peter Pan dog, basically.
That's so great. At Act Today, we give away service dogs.
Oh, thank you for doing that. That is because they're not inexpensive.
No.
And
the families really have to be involved in the training. And
That's right. That's right. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but those dogs are amazing. Harriet is awesome, and we're really blessed to have this nice village around our son.
Yes.
And so many families don't have that opportunity.
Right.
Which is why there's a lot of work to be done.
There is a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
And I want to get back to advocacy because, of course, there have been a couple of things that have happened in the
really?
news recently. I know. And I don't know if you had an opportunity because we loved what you had to say.
I saw what you said.
Well,
and I was like, I loved that.
Well, I loved what you said.
Well,
You were
tell the
so
world
eloquent.
what you're talking about.
Well,
we're right in here.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Tell
that.
everybody.
Okay, so we're talking, of course, about 50 Cent and the rapper and some comments that he made on his Twitter, and people were a little bit up in arms, but I love it when somebody can get right to the heart and be eloquent, and I also appreciate that you used your platform to say this is inappropriate, and you wrote on your Holly's Huddle, excuse me, I get all verklempt about it, but you wrote a beautiful, beautiful essay, an open letter to him, explaining why this was not appropriate and that we as autism parents were not going to stand for this.
Yes, I did. Now, there were a couple early drafts of that letter that probably weren't for prime time.
Okay.
But, I had to get it out. And it was my husband, the cooler head, who said, listen, you need to reach out somehow to 50 Cent's record company, Interscope, and just call and say you're going to do this. Because we know Jimmy Iovine, we're friends. We've known him for years, and so it's like, let's at least, instead of ambushing someone.
Yes.
I really believe in the honey versus vinegar thing. I think it's important because you shut people off if you come too hard.
Yes, you do.
However, did reach out and didn't hear back. So, look, busy people.
Yes.
Probably, who knows what happened. But the bottom line is, I never really was looking for an apology. A lot of people just thought that I should have asked for it. I initially just wanted him to take the tweets down because he said, fool, you look autistic. And I thought that was just ridiculous.
Right.
I knew it was innocuous from his point of view. I knew it was.
Which is shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking that would seem innocuous to
I
somebody.
know. Well, you know what? It is shocking that it would seem innocuous,
the awareness.
But it is the combination of him not. If you don't know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
I still have people in my family say the R word around me, and it makes me want to just, and I say
Yeah.
and they're like, ooh, and I've done it a million times, so they're just. Trained. So that was my goal, was to get him to take him down. When that happened, then the autism parents just took over. Hashtagging, this is what does autism look like? This is what autism looks like. And I was fine with just how much awareness was out there as a result. I did not expect him to release an apology. I really didn't.
Really?
Well, kudos to him for doing that. And one of the things that I thought was so smart that you did, Holly, was that you pointed out that you had respect for him as a businessman and an entertainer, and simply how really
And a philanthropist, too.
And as a philanthropist, really how you would expect more from a man, to not realize that 1 in 88 kids out there, and that's the conservative as we know.
CD buying kids, by the way.
Right. CD buying kids, and he's a businessman. You should be a little bit more aware of this audience, as should every politician in America. We have to come together as a force and as a power. And with public figures like you mentioning that and saying, this is your fan base. This is people that will buy your records, that will buy your drinks, that will buy, that will vote for you in office. Thank you for pointing that out, because we've got to start admitting we are a powerhouse. We are an autism nation.
And I think we proved that by the response. But like I said, when the apology came, I was thrilled because I thought it was pretty eloquent.
Yes.
And I thought it got to the heart of the matter. I think what I was concerned about, and I said it in the letter, of course, and you mentioned it too when you said that nice response, was the concept of us using autistic as the new retarded.
Yes.
Like, that ain't gonna happen on our watch.
Not on our watch, you're right. And that was a rally call.
7 million, whatever million, I think I spotted him 1 million followers. I said he had 8, but 7 million people.
Yeah.
And then my son, was really personally disappointed.
Because he's into rap music. He loves it.
And he goes to school.
Yeah.
And then if 50 Cent think it's okay to call somebody, hey, fool, you look autistic, then that doesn't bode well for the hallways at middle school.
As you said, it's not helping.
No, not at all.
helping.
So that actually was, it happened during 4th of July weekend.
Yes.
And so it didn't get a lot of pickup, pickup. It did in our community, but not as much, public pickup. But thank God for social media.
Yeah.
It did. And then, when it culminated in this apology, it really felt like we had done what we were supposed to do.
Well, this is why I say women should definitely rule the world, be presidents, prime ministers, because there would be no wars. It would end up being apologies, and people would become more aware, and we'd all get along.
Well, and I appreciate that. And a good apology is a good apology. Of course, I said that, it's important when you give an apology that you should put your money where your mouth is.
You
did say that.
And I did suggest, and I'll suggest it again,
I think we should go on record here.
That 50 Cent should put his money where his mouth is. And 50 Cent is his name, so 50 Cent for each and every one of his Twitter followers. I'm with you. I really think it was 8 million. So that's a nice, cool 4 million. I figure he's got that laying around in the couch cushions,
Let's have him give $1 million to Hollyrod, $1 million to Act Today.
That's what I suggested.
And you had 2 other foundations.
I suggested 3 other because I was rounding up to 5.
Oh, okay.
I did that as a one.
Okay.
Right?
Share the love. Share the love.
I thought Autism Speaks could use $1 million.
Oh, I don't know. They've got a lot of millions. But not
Art of
that I hold against them.
Autism could
Art of
use,
Autism. Some of the small
and
ones.
Ariva Martin's Special Needs Network could use
we agree with that. Yes, we love Ariva.
$1 million. So, if he's listening, I think that that's an appropriate apology.
I agree. And
it's not
if you would like
much.
to do that,
I'm right with you. I think that anytime someone gives, puts their money where their mouth is, but I look at it like what it's worth in awareness, and I think it's worth that much and then some.
Yes,
so I feel like that this teaching moment that he really put the culmination on. He really helped it. Is worth millions.
I do agree with you.
I'm with
but
you,
I also
though.
like the written check.
Yeah.
Too.
I'm not mad at a written check now.
But
I'm not mad at that.
All right, we should take a little break because there's more controversy that happened this week that we might want to talk about.
Yes,
next.
and I want to find out more specifically about Hollyrod and what you and Rodney are doing. And I want to talk about Rodney because he's such an important part of your advocacy, and he's doing some amazing work as a dad.
Absolutely. So stick with us. We're going to be back more with Holly Robinson Peete after these messages.
Well, I come out because I feel so connected with families We're in this community, and this year feels really different because we have this, new prevalence of 1 in 88. And I just feel that energy of like, all right, it's time to get serious. And what I love is that not only do we have a great turnout of close to 30,000 people, but it's the people around the teams that are growing. The teams are getting bigger. So you got one kid with autism and a team of like 30 people that come. And that means the community is getting involved.
Okay.
And of course, I'm on the board, National Board of Autism Speak, so I would be here regardless, but I get a lot out of it.
All right, now tell us about your foundation.
Well, Hollywood is doing great. We partnered with Cal State Northridge, and we're going to open our first Autism Compassionate Care Center in Northridge, and we hope to be on all 23 campuses of the Cal State system soon. But the idea is, and I was talking to families today, we're still having to drive from here to there to here to there. We need a one-stop shop, much like the St. Jude model in Memphis, where families can come, get treatment, not have to worry about paying for it, and they can feel good about themselves.
Rodney wrote a book. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? I think it's so important for the dads.
I love Rodney's book. It's called Not My Boy. It's a father's journey with autism, and I'm so proud of it because Rodney calls the dads the forgotten parent sometimes. So it's just really important to have his point of view from a macho ex-NFLer, to talk about how he tweaked his expectations for his son. And I think it's been very helpful for dads.
I so enjoyed talking to you and your son that day. He is such a darling, handsome young man.
He was wearing me out that day, I'll tell you.
Well,
That's what they do.
get
That's their
used
job.
to it, right? So we're back with Holly Robinson Peete and having a great discussion about her role as an advocate, activist, warrior mom, and you wanted to bring up another reason.
We talked about 50 Cent, but a lot of people were writing in yesterday and saying that they would like to get your take on what happened the other day with Joe Scarborough and his comments that he made about the shooting in Colorado, which just absolutely amazing to me. It took my breath away that kind of comment could be made in that kind of forum, but on top of it, that it's a parent is especially devastating to me.
Tell me, I might have missed this because I was on a plane last night on a red eye and gone. Can you let me know what you think about this?
Well, Joe Scarborough, who hosts the Morning Joe program on MSNBC,
who has a son
on the spectrum.
Yes,
on the scale.
On the scale is what he said, exactly. On the autism scale, said, when he heard about the shooting in Colorado, this tragic shooting, that he said he immediately understood what this was, that this was
that he'd seen it before.
That he'd seen it before, that it was a white young male from an affluent neighborhood, probably on the autism scale.
He profiled, basically. He profiled who Holmes was, the shooter, the alleged shooter. We have to say all that stuff.
Yes.
He profiled him and said, well, you see this happening a lot because, when these, and I'm juxtaposing, what he said, paraphrasing, thank you. But the reality is that he was saying that he has a son on the spectrum, so he understands that, but his son has been loved and raised in a great, nice family, so he wouldn't be somebody that would
do something like this.
Carry out a heinous act of, premeditated murder. And I think what made me angry as an autism parent was that, okay, now we got one more thing to try to explain stigma-wise that is your son going, and let me tell you, already I've had people say to me, at summer school, are you nervous that this might happen to your son, that one day your son is going to flip the switch and shoot up a movie? I mean, so I thought Scarborough was so irresponsible with those comments. First of all, we don't have
takes it back.
He made some half-ass apology. I don't know what it was, but I think I want him to understand that there are so many families out there who have to deal with this stigma. Maybe his son has a nice little bubble that he lives in, but so many families, it's the last thing we need to deal with is one more stigma that our kids are somehow because they're antisocial,
Yes.
going to become violent in
Yes.
this premeditated way. It was ridiculous.
And you know what,
Ignorance.
Holly and Shannon, I bet if you looked at the data, I bet if there was research done on this, the number of children on the autism spectrum who are mass murderers, I bet you would find there's nothing to support that.
There are just so many, and let's just say we get some report back that he was on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So what?
Exactly.
So what?
Exactly.
And I mean, we have people who do this stuff who have all sort of schizophrenia, borderline
Well, of
personality
course,
disorders,
of course.
all kinds of things. It just made no sense from a parent.
No.
Yeah.
For
No.
him to say
No.
this. So I was appalled by it, and I think I tweeted something, and I was like, oh, you know, I don't have another open letter in me.
Right.
I was so defeated by the fact that it was a parent. He should have known
Well,
better.
I'd like to issue an invitation for him to be interviewed by us to talk about this, and perhaps we can enlighten others, and I think we should reach out to him and see if he'll come on the show.
Well, we absolutely will do that.
And isn't that really the issue, that if there is some ignorance, as you said, ignorance, that it would be a parent that would, if we have to educate the parents, not to say things like this because of the impact, and you have that kind of platform.
Sure, it just spreads hatred and prejudice.
It is. And I said, you know, I'm worried for all of us that this kind of comment could be made, but I'm on a parent level, I'm worried for him and his child. If this is the knowledge the lack of knowledge that he's walking around with, that's not acceptable. He needs to get educated. And it's important on many
It's as outrageous as someone saying that just because a Muslim shot somebody, that all Muslims are, you know, capable of terrorism. It's just outrageous.
It's just shocking in the ignorance. But,
so we'll
thank you for
issue an
weighing
invitation.
in all these uncomfortable things.
I'm trying to have an opinion.
You have one,
seems
girl.
like you
let
don't
me tell
really.
you.
My husband's like, oh, here she goes.
Yeah.
Should we call MSNBC first?
No,
That's why we're called Warrior Moms. Did you
got
see
her
by my
tattoo.
tattoo? Warrior
tat,
Mom.
nice
Yeah,
tat,
Warrior
Mom.
Mom.
I'm
Warrior
just
Mom.
sucking up the strength of the two of you, the warrior moms on either side of me. I
Okay,
thoroughly
let's
enjoy it.
switch over to warrior dads, because a couple of years ago, your husband and my husband were honored at Saks Fifth Avenue for being Fathers of the Year, along with a couple of other great dads like Gary Cole,
Yeah, that was great.
who's also the father of a daughter with autism, and an amazing man, Gary Cole. We love him as an actor and a dad. And Rodney got up and spoke, and it just touched me so much, his words, his honesty, the rawness, and he wrote a book about his journey with RJ. And can you tell us a little bit about that and how you think it's so different for the father versus the mother, and how he kind of evolved? It's a big question.
Newsflash, men process things differently than women.
Yes.
Shocking.
Not sure if you knew that.
Mars, Venus.
Right. And so that was, it was hard for him to process the autism diagnosis. He took it very personally.
Yes.
He felt like he was just living this nightmare. This boy was supposed to be
The athlete.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Sure.
You know, named after him, the whole thing. And so it took him a while, and he went through the denial process, and it almost took us down. It really did. I mean, we had this sort of fairy tale marriage, Hollywood marriage, you know, built to last and all that stuff. But it almost took us down because I would dog ear books, and he was playing football at the time, and I was here in LA, and he was back east. I would painstakingly highlight stuff for him, just trying to break it down so it wasn't that complicated, what our son was going through, what was autism. And I would go to the football city where we were, and I would find the books unopened, nothing there. So I was just like, I don't think this is gonna work out. The good news was that eventually he had this epiphany where he realized he just didn't want to lose his family because he couldn't get his stuff together, because he couldn't tweak his expectations.
Right.
So I consider myself very fortunate there, because we have countless friends that we've met over the years who are no longer together.
Couldn't do it.
And I couldn't do it without this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say that. I was telling him, if you don't get together, I'm leaving you, but I was bluffing, and I'm glad he didn't call my bluff. Because I couldn't do it. And I see single moms, single dads
I don't
doing
know
this.
how they do it.
And it blows my mind. I mean, just to raise typical kids, but, you know, all the things that we have to do as moms for these children. So the good news is he's still around, 17 years, and
he really stepped up to the plate.
He did, and he wrote "Not My Boy" because
Not
he
My
wanted
Boy.
to help other fathers have conversations about this, and it's been tremendously helpful. So I'm very proud of his
wonderful book.
advocacy.
My husband Reed, who was in the sports business as a sports executive at Fox, and he read the book and he said Rodney really expressed everything he had.
He went there, didn't he?
Yeah.
He went there, and Reed, I mean, we had a moment too where we had come home from a car show where Reed just got freaked out because he was trying to show Wyatt the plane he flew when he was in the Navy and blah, 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 blah. And Wyatt wasn't interested. He abandoned us that day for like 3 hours. I couldn't find him. We got home and I said, I am raising this child with you or without you.
Right.
I want to raise him with you, but I'm raising him. So you let me know whether you want to be with us.
Yeah.
And it just was almost this parallel experience that a man as respected as a jock, super jock, as Rodney is, could reach out to other fathers. I just want you to know that in my own family, and if you'll express this to him, it really changed Reed's whole perspective.
Oh,
so thank
that
him
is so
for that.
good to know. And you know, I love that, and he knows that. Rodney knows this impact, which is why when he wrote the book, he knew that it was just so important. You know, I knew the image of this strong, macho male being able to talk about things in this candid way and leaving it all out there would be really impactful. But there are areas of this world. We went down to the Bahamas, and a friend of mine was the ambassador there for someone. We did a whole island tour and talking about autism, which is pretty prevalent there, and I had no idea. And they're so behind the times. I mean, there are some things they're still doing. You would be appalled.
Oh, appalling.
But we had Bahamian men with this macho African-American guy saying, you know, I had to tweak my expectations, I had to do this, and they were staring at him with their mouths open, like they're very macho in the islands.
Yeah.
And there's still sort of a long way to go. So I realize that there's a lot of advocacy that Rodney can still do around this country and around the world globally. So we're looking forward to. I'm trying to get him out of the house.
All right. Well,
I'm trying to send him out to go to really get out there and talk about it, because he underestimates the impact that he had. He thinks his big mouth wife is the one that does it.
No,
But I'm telling
and you can tell him what I just relayed to you, how important it was. And I think we should get together when we're not on the air and talk about ways we can get Rodney out there.
Let's do that.
To more fathers. Because I think even a lot of fathers are probably afraid to say, I'm going to hear this talk on, you know, with Rodney Peete about, they would probably love to tell their friends, I'm going to meet Rodney Peete.
Right.
Hear Rodney Peete talk about having a son with autism.
And when we go out together and do speeches, I mean, it's really empowering.
Oh, it's got to be incredible.
We really do sort of walk everybody through the journey, and we do it with humor, and we do it, you know, with candor, and it really helps, because we just ask for a show of hands of families who, you know, are struggling, or husband and wives that are struggling, and every one of them went up.
You're a power couple on a mission, honey.
So it's great to be able to advocate that way.
Yeah.
And I love what he's been able to do.
Wonderful.
Do we have time to talk about Holly Rod?
Let's talk about Holly Rod, because we got a bunch of questions and tweets that are coming in that I know everybody wants us to get to. But tell us, for people who don't know about Holly Rod, they should. Tell us
Holly
about
Rod Foundation.
Holly Rod originally started because my father had Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
My father, for anybody who's over 30, will remember that my dad was the original Gordon on Sesame Street. Started the show, and then went on to write and produce the Cosby Show the whole time. And it's just a great man who was stricken with Parkinson's disease in his 40s, young onset Parkinson's. We started Holly Rod because families were impacted by Parkinson's didn't have anywhere to go to get treatment. So Rodney, being an alum at USC, we started a compassionate care program down there, and that was great. And then somewhere along, maybe 5, 6 years, 7 years after that, we get the diagnosis for autism. We realize we gotta. Remember, it took a while to start talking about it. It took a minute to process that publicly, and then we added the mission of autism. And what we do is we help families navigate the diagnosis, and we also provide compassionate care. So what our main goal now has been to get these iPads in the hands of these families, kids, so that they can communicate. That's our Gift of Voice program. But our dream of dreams went down to St. Jude, saw the St. Jude model, and like, where is the St. Jude for Autism? Where's that place where families can go and get treatment for their kids and the siblings and the mother and father, the all the therapy we need, a barber shop,
a one-stop shop,
everything for the autism lifestyle, so you don't have to run here, there, Pasadena. We used to go from Pasadena to Santa Monica. I mean,
you got one place OT, one place speech, one place behavior therapy,
everything under one roof. And we're getting very, very, very close to that. And we started a program with Cal State Northridge, which we're very excited about. Ultimately, I think they're going to help us get there. But we're doing an autism network where our families can connect, and where we can at least be a portal when you get this diagnosis. So long ways to go still, but we're just thrilled. We just had our big
fundraiser. Now, if any of you that are in the Southern California area, and I was out of town the last one, but I have been to your Hollyrod Gala.
Yeah,
and
it's fun.
It is unbelievable. The stargazing is unbelievable.
It's
I mean, you're
tremendous.
walking in and Donald Trump is in front of you, and Chris Rock, and Samuel Jackson, and the night itself is so beautiful and so empowering. You have a great fashion show, but then you honor so many of the great advocates
this year we
autism.
honored Justin and Zev from The Amazing Race, and they have this, Zev has Asperger's, and their friendship is so key. The kids with Asperger's are so brilliant and amazing, but they can't make friends. And then we honored Brian Grant, who's a former NBA player who has Parkinson's, amazing guy, and Toys R Us for their advocacy. And
they've done so much.
They've been amazing for special needs, and so many other causes. But I want to say real quick, because I know we want to get to to my tweeters. We're having a carnival. August 12th. Out at Culver City. At the Culver Studios. We do this every year. Open to the public. And you can find information at hollyrod.org.
All right. And we can put it up on our website.
Yes, absolutely. Great. We have a lot of families affected by autism there, a lot of kids with autism there. It's a very confined area. Lots of fun sensory stuff for typical and
open to the public.
Open to the public.
And you and Rodney will be there?
Oh yeah, be there with a bunch of our friends.
So it's a chance for all of you to meet these amazing.
It's called My Brother Charlie Family Fun Festival. Say that 40 times.
My Brother Charlie Family Fun Festival.
And My Brother Charlie is our book.
The book, which is absolutely wonderful.
I've said
and
so
we
much.
and we have
we
a
haven't
picture.
even gotten to that.
Yes, we haven't gotten to that. And we know you guys are writing in and want us to ask the question. So stick with us. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be back.
Holly's going to nap.
I'm going to take a nap now. Do you mind?
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Autism Live, and let's talk autism with Shannon and
Nancy. That's a mouthful, too.
That is a mouthful, too. And our very special guest, Holly Robinson Peete. We have a bunch of questions. We've gotten some from Facebook. Some of you are writing in on the autism-live.com, and we've got some tweets that are coming in. I'm having some technical difficulty getting them, and want to tell Tyler to send them over to me as he gets them. But I had a couple of questions that I know that people wanted to ask. One in particular, that a gentleman who was with us last week, who authored the book, Mommy, I Wish I Could Tell You What They Did to Me in School Today, specifically wanted to know where your son goes to school, do you have any concerns about how he's being treated, or do you feel comfortable with how that's, and how did you, if you did have concerns about how he was being treated at school, how you would have addressed that?
Well, when he was younger, I had big concerns because he didn't have language. Now that he has language, he doesn't still share everything with me, but I get much more information from him. And he's in public school now. I'm just down there all the time. They know I'm a presence, and now I'll show up.
Yes.
I think it's that squeaky wheel thing. When they see you coming, they start rolling their eyes. You've done your job. When they watch, here comes Miss Peete again. So I think it's about being present.
Didn't you make a remark on Celebrity Apprentice that dealing with some of the celebrities was nothing compared to going into an IEP, individual education plan for your child, and dealing with those people?
Only we would understand that. Like
yeah,
that
and
joke.
other moms out there listening, and fathers.
IEPs are, and that's what I mean when I say we. I mean all of us.
All of us.
But IEPs are, those meetings are interesting.
Very.
And they could suck the life out of you. They can be great, and they can be trying and challenging.
Yes.
So yes, after years and years and years of those, the boardroom was nothing.
Yeah, that's right. That'll teach you how to fight for your rights, right?
And what an amazing fundraiser you were on that show. I thought the fundraising was important, but also the awareness that you brought through doing that show. One of the things that somebody tweeted in was that there's a rumor going that you're considering being on Dancing with the Stars. Is that at all true?
Well, let me put that one to rest.
You got 2 left feet?
One, well, that I am a SWR, sister without rhythm.
I didn't know that was possible.
Okay, that is possible. I'm here to trip that A. And B, 1 reality competition per lifetime. Thank you very much. I don't get these people that just hop from one to the next to the next. That's all. I'm good.
Yeah, that was draining.
Yeah, I love Dancing with Stars. I have friends there. I go, I watch
yeah.
it, but I am not about to do that.
Okay. All right. We'll put that rumor to rest.
Another person who wrote in and said, what are some good ways to get autistic children to focus? What are some games that help? Any ideas would be great if they wanted to ask you.
Games. You know, to be honest with you, none are hitting me off the top of my head. I used to probably be super well versed in that, but I am involved in the Autism Meets Adolescence place right now, and so that's sort of my main focus. Like if you'd asked me that question 5-6 years ago, I'd been like giving you 15 websites. But at this point, like my main focus is just dealing with puberty plus autism, which is a whole nother set of challenges.
Well, I'm sure there are parents listening today that are facing that. What do you have some words of wisdom and guidance for them?
Well, you know, you have all these things that you have to navigate, and the first one being, do you go down a pharmacological path? Do you not? What are the pros? What are the cons? So that's sort of where we are right now.
We just started Wyatt, who is going to be 11, on a small amount of an serotonin reuptaker.
Yeah,
it is helping him. We held that, you know, we did all the biomed and we held out.
Yeah.
But it's helping a bit, we think. You know, we're being very cautious.
You want to give them what tools they need to focus in school and all of that. So I think everybody's situation is different. But I think the hardest part for us has been social media.
Okay.
My son doesn't communicate real well if he's sitting right here in front of you.
Yes.
But on social media, he has a sense of freedom.
Okay.
Because he's not making eye contact.
Right.
So we want that.
Right.
But boy, do we have to helicopter over that kid.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we have to monitor
what sites and what, you know, who
it's
he's
a chance for him to be social.
Yes.
And we don't want to limit that.
Sure.
But by the same token, you know, we all know what Facebook can do.
Right.
In this world, you know, we're raising kids in the Facebook generation, and it's a whole nother situation.
And then let's talk about relationships with the opposite sex.
Oh yeah, and then there's that. So I'm trying to get him to understand as an adolescent, you know, what he can and cannot say to girls.
Yes.
How he can approach them. His twin sister's very helpful with that.
Okay.
But you know, these are all things that we didn't know we would have to deal with. And we knew we would eventually, but we weren't really prepared for it. Yeah. So I'm constantly asking my friends whose kids with autism are in their 20s.
Right.
You know, what else do I have to look forward to?
I do the same thing.
How can I head this off at the pass
I do the same thing. I have to say, one of the funniest things that Jenny McCarthy said at the recent Autism One conference that she did was she's praying for her little boy to come home with hickeys on his neck. Whereas most parents are like, you know, watch out. She is praying for that moment where she can go, yes!
Yeah, well, and not to take the funny out of that, but the issue that I'm worried about is sexual harassment.
Well, yes.
You know, all the seriousness about when you start relationships with girls. There's a gentleman who we all heard about recently who, you know, went to jail for years because a young lady who now is like, oops, I didn't mean it. You know, said he raped her when he was 16, you know, and so now he's putting his life back together. So because our kids have trouble socially connecting and they're a little bit awkward when it comes to, you know, the things that are going on at school now sexually, I'm very concerned. So I hover over that kid like he's like, do you have something to do? But I'm so nervous because the wrong thing.
Yeah, at the wrong time.
They say the wrong thing, touch the wrong place.
Yeah.
somebody look up and go, oh, you know, who are your parents? I mean, you can't even imagine. So, I want him to have, you know, I want him to be able to experiment and do all the things that teenage boys do, but he's got to be careful.
Well, you know, this is an important area. I think it's an important area for us to talk about on the show. I think it's important for anybody that's experts on this to speak up and get out there. And I think it's something for Dr. Doreen Granpeche probably has many programs right now that she's working on to help these preteens and teens navigate behavior.
Can I just say that I wish I had this resource of you two when we got our diagnosis in 2000.
I wish that I had it because I didn't have it, and so that's part of the reason why we're here.
Well, thank you for doing that, because families who are just getting the diagnosis today, to be able to go on their internet and see people having this kind of dialogue.
I know.
Thank you. On behalf of everybody we serve.
Thank you, Holly. Like Shannon and I both said, you are definitely a rock star to us. You are a role model, and we just admire you so much.
Absolutely, and not to belittle that, but I got all the tweets now.
Okay,
so,
fabulous.
So for families with a child on the spectrum, does it get better? You know, we've been having all this discussion about how it gets better recently in the news, and they want to know, does it get better?
You know, every family is different, but I will say what gets better is our access to information and our ability to talk about it. So just that alone makes it better. And the acceptance is getting better. When people accept you for who you are, you're automatically in a better situation. And you know, children with autism don't know how to be anything else but sincere. And when you have a sincere child in an environment where people are accepting of what's going on with him, that's automatically better. So yes, I think it does get better.
Okay, I agree.
And as you said, the access to information.
Resources, huge.
I mean, when Wyatt was diagnosed, there was, you know, University of Google, and that was about it.
Right.
One of the things that somebody asked earlier up in the scroll here was about ABA, and that, you know, you said in a blog last year that I quote all the time on this show, the top 8 things that you wish the world knew.
Right.
And number 1 was that no one can afford autism. And I always say, if Holly Robinson Peete says that no one can afford it, then we can all forgive ourselves for the fact that we can't afford it.
Right.
And somebody was saying not everybody has access or can afford ABA, but I believe that's why you have an organization to help people.
Well, yeah, that is exactly what we're trying to do, is, you know, help people get access to this type of behavioral therapy, and to be able to try others. Because ABA is, you know, what the gold standard, but we did a hybrid of ABA and floor time, and a little RDI thrown in. I mean, we felt like that worked for us. But what if you can't afford to, you know, shop around and try new stuff? So these are the things we're trying to help families with.
And that was somebody else's question about what kinds of therapy did you
do? And what age did you start Rodney with his behavior therapy?
Right away. I mean, oh yeah, immediately.
He got the diagnosis at what age?
3 years old.
At 3. Okay.
And so immediately we started him doing everything.
Right.
But I immediately noticed this Hatfield-McCoy's thing going on in ABA versus floor time, and this one versus that, and I was like, oh, y'all gonna pull me up in all this. I need to do what I think is best for my kid, and I was going on just pure mother adrenaline.
Instinct, which is always right, though.
But it seemed to work out for him, and you know, but for families, they just have to, so much of going with the gut, you know, that you have to do, and that can be really scary.
It is scary, but I do believe in almost all cases, a parent's gut is the best possible litmus test for what to do.
Yes, if your gut says it's wrong and it's not working, chances are, as a parent, you're right on.
Somebody else wants to know, was it hard being away from your kids when you were on Celebrity Apprentice?
The hardest thing.
I bet.
The hardest thing.
How long did you have to be away from them?
I was a full month or so, a little over a month in New York in October, November. It was hard. It was hard, but and that's another reason why, you know.
Well, you're not doing Dancing with the Stars.
Ding, 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 ding.
What a shame. I would enjoy that so much.
So basically, you're looking for that day job that allows you to stay
sort of like the one I had.
It's
okay.
Well, somebody asked here on the list, are you thinking about doing your own talk show?
Listen, I loved doing the talk. I'll just, you know, that's the elephant in the room. I loved it.
We loved you on it.
I loved the platform. You know, I loved everything about it, and I did, you know, my absolute best to do everything I was asked to do. And sometimes things don't work out, but the reality is I'm not spooked away from doing another talk show. It wasn't that bad a situation that it made me go, oh, I'll never in my life. Whereas like the reality thing's a different story. But I think have a lot of people that have been, pretty interested in me doing some more daytime, and I love that. There also is a chance we may think about doing, when I say reality, I mean reality competition. Right. There may be a chance of doing some family reality situation. That's also, awesome. I would love that because I think, again, it's a platform and it's a chance to have a sort of a different kind of family out there in the reality airwaves. Yes. Yeah. You have a lot of families out there that don't always reflect the values and things that
of what's really going on out there in America.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more relatable. So that's something that's on the.
Well, it's interesting. We see so much dysfunction, and it would be so interesting for you to redefine normal.
And well, now we got a little dysfunction too, and whose family doesn't?
Well, everybody does.
But the good news is I think I haven't seen, in looking on the reality landscape, a family since maybe Run's House, which was, I used to love that show on MTV. So that's something that we're working on too. So it's been exciting seeing the new things out there. But daytime TV, definitely I would love to get back into. Okay. And Mike and Molly, I'm going to go back to that show as well. And that was
wonderful.
Fun. Yeah,
how fabulous. We love you.
Lots of stuff to do.
Yeah. Lots of stuff to do. Okay, a couple of more questions that we have here. Somebody who says, and you've addressed this a little bit, but do you think that most people are ignorant to the growing epidemic of autism, and how can we change this?
Well, again, we did talk about this. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to call out 50 Cent, because I wanted people to understand that, how prevalent this thing is. 1 in 88, 1 in 54 boys. We're talking about a major emergency here, and we're not paying as much attention. It doesn't match the prevalence, No. It really doesn't.
It does not.
So I think we have a lot more work to do awareness-wise, but it sure is a lot different from when we got our diagnosis. Absolutely. So each year and with each situation, we bring more people into the fold. But it's each one reach one sort of scenario. Sometimes we have to not only educate rappers and talk show hosts, but we also have to talk to our parents and our in-laws and cousins, and so you just in your own community, the more you can do to get rid of the stigma, the better.
Grassroots, absolutely.
And what about, is there a chance we might see you doing advocacy in Washington? Is there a chance we might see you?
I have a good friend who is in the Obama administration, who's at the White House, named Mike Stroutmanis.
I met Mike.
Mike's awesome.
Yes.
And we've talked about doing something. He has a son on the spectrum.
Yes, he does.
He's been a tremendous advocate in the White House for autism. He's been behind the scenes working some great stuff. Good. So I would love to do some work with Mike, and they're all focused on re-election right now.
Of course.
Once that's all over, and if he gets back in, or even if he doesn't, I would be down to be some sort of global whatever ambassador.
I think that'd be fantastic, and I think that we do need a federal response to this epidemic.
We do.
Absolutely.
It's a little lacking.
It's got to be more done, and the president, I think, being a very smart man, must realize that with these numbers, 1 in 54 boys, his constituents have a big concern about this.
Yeah, they do.
And not only that, the economic impact down the line on our country. We've got to get our kids employed.
Yeah, there's that too. As my son's going to be 15 soon, and we talk about what his future's going to look like, not only with his relationships, but how is he going to make it in this world.
Right.
We always have that conversation as a family, and we try to get a team around him to try to make this an easier transition. But we know that the adult autism unemployment rate is somewhere around 90%, if it's not higher than that. So we have much work to be done in that area as well.
What are your hopes for your son?
Happiness, gainful employment. A village around him of people who get him and understand him. I mean, come on, the biggest issue that I still wake up sort of a little bit in having nightmares about what happens when I'm gone, and will he be okay? I mean, it's every parent, not just autism parent.
But certainly
our kids are going to be able to stand up on their own.
Right.
But with the kids with special needs, is a whole nother energy, and I also worry about him socially. Being out there socially with this whole Trayvon Martin thing that happened, that freaked me out, because so now I walk him through what happens if the police come up to you, and you're a black kid wearing this hoodie, walking around this neighborhood, which he does every day, and I give him things that he can do because I want him to feel independent. So I mean, we walk through drills. So I have a lot of fears, but I have a lot of positivity and a lot of what's the word?
Hope.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
what it is.
Hope for his future, because I think he's an amazing kid, and I believe that the community around him is going to support him.
If you look back when he was 3 and you first got the diagnosis, would you ever have dreamed you would have come this far with him?
Oh my gosh, that day we call it the never day, because no one ever, the lady, isn't that awful? I didn't really care for the pediatric developmental pediatrician that I was. I shouldn't say that if she's watching.
No, we all have those people.
It's a hard moment. Come on.
It's a tough moment, but I think you got to give a parent some hope.
Yes.
You cannot have them tell them they'll never do this, your kid will never do that, he'll never say this, that. So when I see him now, I have hope, and I like to share that story, because what if we bought into that?
Yeah. Seriously.
That's such an important story for our families that are listening today that maybe just got the diagnosis, maybe have nonverbal. You say Rodney was nonverbal?
He was.
So
he had
what
very
age?
little verbal skills.
To what age?
But his verbal skills really started meaningful conversation and circles of conversation around 9 or 10.
Okay, so listen up, parents. Here is an example of the kind of achievements, the kind of miracles that can happen. They happen to Holly Robinson Peete. They can happen to you.
Absolutely.
And you know what? And I know we've got to go.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would add to that, and if it doesn't happen, if you end up with an adult child that is not verbal, there are so many ways,
of course,
functional communication
that we can get their voices heard, and that's
absolutely.
So it is getting better.
It is getting better. Thank you so much.
Thank
you have been such a delight.
I have to go.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
We'd like to
Do
hear
the rest
longer.
of my
We can.
day.
It's like we talked for 5 minutes. You're going to go take a nap and then get on that 20
I want to
list.
remind our viewers, as this show ends, the conversation continues. Please stay in touch with us via email, Twitter, and Facebook. We'll be back tomorrow with Dr. Adele Nadowski talking about behavior champs, so you'll want to be with us for then. Thank you again to Holly Robinson Peete and to Nancy
Holly.
Jackson.
Thank you, Shannon.
And please give your kiddos a hug from us.
And
Bye-bye.
love them today.
That's right.